Happy Monday and welcome to November. Seems like October just sped through like a bullet, don't it? Well, with November 1st comes Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead. Today we're going to talk about it, and hopefully I don't slaughter the Spanish language too badly. Coming to you from the Triple M Studios, it's Mystery, Murder, and Magic. And here's your host, Andrea Lee, and sometimes Alex. Yep, another new intro for this show. We just kind of felt like it was time for some new ones. Well, anyway, if you've ever watched the Disney movie Coco, you know that it's about a little boy named Miguel who wants to be a musician. Not magician, musician. But his grandmother is dead set against that. So he goes on this adventure to the land of the dead to find out, he's looking for his great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather. And the great-great-grandfather was a famous singer. Now, a lot of the traditions of Dia de los Muertos is shown in the movie, and it's a really good movie that I recommend if you haven't seen it. Now, in a nutshell, Dia de los Muertos is a time of remembrance and celebrating ancestors, as well as reuniting with the spirits of those who have passed. Now, most of the holiday's origins come from Mexico, but it's observed by those of Hispanic heritage around the world. Now, while there is a day to remember those who have passed away, it's not a time to mourn. In fact, it's a very lively, very joyful celebration. And one thing that I do want to make clear right now is that Dia de los Muertos is not the Mexican version of Halloween. It's totally not that. It just happens to fall around the same time. Now, it's thought that this tradition goes back 3,000 years to the Aztecs. And the legend goes that once a person passes, they travel to the land of the dead. And once they have completed 9 challenges, which can take several years, and once they accomplish that, their soul can go on to their final resting place. Well, according to the tradition, the gates of heaven are opened at midnight, and the spirits of those who have passed are allowed to rejoin their families for a brief time. Now, even though I said Dia de los Muertos isn't the Mexican version of Halloween, now there's some similarities, like I mentioned last week about the veil thinning. During the Day of the Dead, it's also believed that the border between the spirit world and the real world dissolves, allowing the spirits to roam the earth. One common tradition during Dia de los Muertos is making an altar in the home. It's decorated with pictures and other mementos, just stuff that reminds them of the deceased. And the surviving friends and family members also put like food and drinks that loved one enjoyed on the altar, and it's supposed to be like an offering to help the deceased through those 9 challenges that I mentioned. Many people also visit the graves of those who have passed and bring their offerings there. So, I've seen pictures too of like very decorated graves, the tombstones and everything, with beautiful flowers and just different types of things. But it's a very beautiful celebration, honestly. Now, I'm sure you've seen the brightly decorated skulls, and those are called candy sugar skulls. And those are given to friends and loved ones during the festival, but not as offerings for the dead, but rather for those for the living. In some of the larger cities, kids dress in costumes and walk through the neighbors, to their neighbors and collect treats like they do on Halloween. But like I said, it's still not Halloween. It's just one of the traditions of that day. And the treats that are commonly handed out are like candy and even money. Now, some traditions vary from town to town. Now, there's one town in the state of Morelos. It's tradition to invite visitors in exchange for 6 small candles. And those candles are used to pay respects for the recently deceased. And in return for those candles, the visitors receive tamales and like a traditional beverage that's made of hot corn. Now, in another area, boys and young men dress up as their grandfathers and they do the dance of the old man. And it's a very energetic dance where the participants crouch down and then jump around. Now, did you know that the holiday is actually split into 2 days? It's like November the 1st and 2nd. The first day begins at midnight on November 1st and is a time for the departed children to reunite with their families for the next 24 hours. That day is called Dia de los Angelitos. On the altar is built to honor these little ones. Their favorite snacks, candies, toys, photographs, that type of thing are displayed to encourage a visit from them. Now, the second day is called, sorry about that, woke up with a sore throat. Second day is called Dia de los Difuntos and is a celebration of deceased adults, and it begins at midnight the following day. Now, a lot of times, the loved ones of that person that they're celebrating, they'll get together and they'll tell funny stories and, other memories about that person. Now, their altars have more of an adult theme, and they often include tequila. The atmosphere is a lot like a party with singing and dancing, so there's no sadness. I mean, it's really a truly joyful celebration of the person's life. Well, you may ask why anyone would celebrate death, but as I mentioned, it's believed that the tradition was started by the Aztecs, and the Aztecs believed that death was just temporary and the souls of those who had passed could come back to visit. But even if it wasn't for that, I honestly believe that fondly remembering and celebrating those who have passed, it's just a beautiful tradition. And another way to look at it is that it's not the death that is being celebrated, but that person's life. Now, something that I find interesting is that the gravesite at the cemetery is decorated first because that's where it's believed that the dead will return first. The graves are decorated with Mexican marigolds, and in some villages, they will sprinkle like flower petals from the cemetery to their home so that the spirits can find their way home. In other villages, people spend the entire night in the cemetery to welcome the returning spirits. They make a party of it with like a picnic, music, and drinking. And I mentioned marigolds, and if you look at videos or pictures from Day of the Dead celebrations, you'll see marigolds everywhere. As far as you can see is like the bright yellow and orange flowers. And that's because marigolds are believed to lead spirits from their graves to their homes. Well, because of movies like Coco and others, Dia de los Muertos is becoming more and more popular each year. In large cities like Chicago, Los Angeles, and others where there are large Hispanic communities, you'll often find celebrations there this time of year. Well, I know that was another short one, but that's all I've got for today's Mystery, Murder, and Magic. Don't forget to come back on Wednesday for an all-new midweek mini.